right, we almost have everybody here. Who am I missing? Oh, there's Leo. Very good. Thank you all for joining us. We will start out here, get everything going with introductions. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Please give me full name, full title. Don't be shy, who you're with, and a little bit about your company.
Okay. I'm Clay Dockery with Massimo Zanetti Beverage USA. We are a coffee roaster, and I am vice president of the private label and co-manufacturing division.
And so tell us a little bit more about Massimo Zanetti there, because I know there's a great history there.
We are an Italian coffee roaster, a third generation privately held company, primarily in the European market in cafes, primarily in the retail side of the business in the US.
And I know I was on a cruise ship on MSC that there was all your coffee. So that was cool. Great coffee. You also recently got honored with what? He's shy. Come on. You got to get into the Private Label Hall of Fame, right? You've been in this business a long time, but we appreciate it. Good job, man. Up next, actually, let me stop before you, Morgan. So we were supposed to have Beto Galvin join us. You notice Beto's not here, unfortunately, due to all of the goings on of the mergers. They decided they didn't want to participate, but Beto was very apologetic and said to tell everybody hello. But we have Morgan, of course. So Morgan Drummond from Misfits Markets. Morgan, tell us who you are and what you do and who you're with.
Hey everyone, I'm Morgan. I'm the Senior Director of Private Label at Misfit Markets. We are an e-commerce retailer based out of Philadelphia originally. So we deliver direct to customers. Got a little bit of echo. We deliver direct to customers in pretty much nearly every zip code across the lower 48 states. And we really pride ourselves on being very purpose-driven, mission-driven with our commitment to reducing food waste and challenging the inefficiencies in the food system. So we did acquire Imperfect Foods a couple of years ago, nearly, and have since merged operations assortment with them. So I manage all things private label as well as co-branding opportunities with external partners.
So Morgan, give us a little bit of your background, because you have a good background that will help give people perspective.
Sure. So I started out on the technical side of things with food science. So I've been on the co-manufacturer side doing product development and top R&D. And then I also have over 10 years experience at Whole Foods Market on their private label team.
And what is the magical title you have for olive oil? Tell me.
I am extra virgin olive oil savant. So I achieved my certification in 2019. That was my last trip before the pandemic happened, actually. So I am one of 8 certified savants on the register. So something I'm
in the world, right?
About.
So you know a little bit about olive oil.
A little bit.
Thank you for joining us, Morgan. Leo, you're up next, man. Tell us who you are and what you do and who you're with.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Christopher, for putting this together. This is Leo Nucera, a Sales and Marketing Director here at Agritalia. I'm working here in this family business since 14 years. And the company is one of the major supply chain management company based in Italy that is specialized in importing products from the European Union. Of course, we work with several retailers. We helped hundreds of private label programs during the years and working in this environment since the late 80s.
So essentially, if I want a really great Italian food program or French food program or whatever from authentic manufacturers, you guys can help me do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can tell you that probably exclusive brand, private brands are one of the most effective food ambassadors that we have everywhere in the world.
It seems like everybody's just pulling out Italian programs and Greek programs, and there's all kinds of great food going on right now. So it's exciting. So let's talk about the state of innovation in private brand, right? It's where we are today. Clay, you have that unique perspective. I think you've been in the business longer than most of us. How do you see it? Where do you think we are as far as innovation?
The interesting thing is, if I go back about 20 years, and I was working with another company, and we had some extremely innovative products. And the first question I was always asked was, what do I compare this to? And to think how we have leapfrogged that dynamic to the point where retailers are coming to us and saying, what can you provide to us that's different, that's unique, that can help us differentiate ourselves in the marketplace? And it was very interesting hearing Gene's conversation about the fact that 98% of the products are common across every store. It's hard to believe that the number is still that high.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of Coke and Pepsi and Breyer's ice cream, and yeah, it's just that's all the produce is pretty much the same, right? There's a cucumber is a cucumber. So Morgan, what's your perspective? Where do you think we are today?
I'm not surprised that in general we gave ourselves a C in terms of innovation. I would expect some of those more specific areas, like the grade on sustainability innovation, that obviously resonated with me. I think overall the industry gave ourselves a C for that as well. I would expect that to continue inching forward and making gains over the next couple of years, because as Gene said, the problem's there, but we have to solve it, even though it is difficult because of all the conflicting or inconsistent legislation or lack of legislation, especially here in the States. It'll be interesting. I think it's important with innovation too, that we, similar to the point of 98% of products being similar across retailers, we have to make sure that we're delivering on what's important to our end consumer. And so we could have something really cool and unique, but does it even matter to them? Or we can bring in, as we're trying to build out our overall assortment, things that we feel like we need because everybody else has them and we don't want to leave the sale. But in the end, that may not be really relevant or important to our consumer. So it's really important that we're paying attention to what our actual target customer base wants, how they're going to age up in the future, and we plan forward for that and not just look at the next 2 years. We all know how long it can take to develop products, and we really need to think beyond that.
Absolutely. We'll come back to you because I have some questions about that. But let's let Leo talk to us about innovation. Where are we today? What do you think?
Yes, of course. I think, first of all, innovation is the ability to predict the future and also adapt the society's changes and contingencies. I would say that today, probably, we are experiencing a shift in the speed to market of the innovation, because probably we had more time available during the COVID in 2020. Many people were just changed jobs or taking some time off. They have more time to think. Many startups with the new generations were open. And I think that gave the industry like more, say, material to get the innovation on the marketplace.
Makes sense. So I think the next question is a culture question. It's obviously we were built as an industry around copying things, right? It's what we're really good at it. And it's a mindset and a skill set that doesn't need to go away. How do we culturally become more? How to both on the retailer and the manufacturer side? So the retailer's got to be able to come to you and say, hey, this is who we are, this is what we want, and we need innovation here, we want regular stuff here, and really become transparent and communicate. And the manufacturer has to be able to listen to those things and bring their piece of the pie to the table. What do you think, Clay? How do we change the industry a little bit to change the culture of who we are, to add and not lose what we already had?
I think that what we have to do in part is to start recognizing the transitional nature of food. Food was something for nutrition exclusively many years ago. And now you can almost think of food as theater. Is it worthy of an Instagram or a TikTok picture? I really had my awakening during COVID when there was a sudden explosion of instant coffee. And it was the younger generation that was doing it because Dalgona looked really good on Instagram. And as quickly as that arrived, it faded. So we have to understand the difference between a short-term trend and a longer-term trend so we can capitalize on the ones that have a greater chance of being successful. The reality of our industry across all CPG is the failure rate is extraordinarily high. So we have to be very cautious, and that involves true strategic alignment with the manufacturer and the retailer. Retailers know their consumers better than anyone else, any manufacturer. And I think that having those conversations and data sharing is critical to be able to identify the trends that are going to be long-term and not just a flash in the pan.
And for those of you who didn't get on the Dalgona coffee, it's still out there. It's not selling as much, but it's a combination of freeze-dried coffee and sugar, and it's whipped and this whole thing. And it's fascinating, honestly. If you think the TikTok trends have gone away, go search cottage cheese right now. And cottage cheese is everywhere. I don't know who decided cottage cheese was a thing, but it is right now. It's huge. So Morgan, what do you think? How do we change the culture? You're obviously in a brand new retailer, relatively new compared to a lot of them, that has a different culture already and a different perspective on the world. How do we as an industry build this culture that encourages innovation?
I think there's two parts that really resonate to me, specifically in what we're doing at Misfits and how I'm like living and breathing this every day now. One, it comes back to collaboration, which was the key theme in the results that you shared, Christopher, between retailers and manufacturers, which has been something that's always behooved me and helped me achieve what I have in the past. But specifically now, it's really important for me to know my customer base and what's important to them, how that fits into our go-forward strategy, and for me to articulate that to my supplier base, because I can't be everywhere all at once. And a lot of what I'm looking for is to leverage like those opportunities or sometimes like mishaps or excess product that exists in the supply chain and then putting a spin on it. But I don't know what those problems are that manufacturers are experiencing if I'm not there or they're not telling me. So it's really important for me to educate my customers or my suppliers and say, this is important to me. This is what I'm looking for. And then they know as they manage other customer relationships with other retailers, what my end game is. And so they can funnel those to me and have their teams be on the lookout, because I can't see that all the time. And I think that helps the manufacturers and suppliers better understand too what partnerships there are, like as opportunities for us to leverage exclusively that other retailers may not be able to. And that leads me into the second point, is being nimble. And there was a great trend upwards in the response to survey research in terms of feeling like it's okay to fail and knowing that we have to accept with risk comes failure at times, but there's always learning from those failures. So having that ability to take on that risk, but also to do it quickly, and that can make things so difficult too. So as a retailer, it's okay, if I want to act on something that may be a fleeting trend, Dalgona coffee back in the day, often I will pull out some of the red tape so I can react on it if we think our customer base really wants to lean into that. If we think the ROI is there, instead of only focusing on long-term opportunities that are more safe, there has to be some risk and quickness to get there.
And I'm curious, and you and I haven't talked about this, so this might be a hard question. I apologize if it is. How do we redevelop pay structure and bonus plans and those kinds of things to encourage merchants and manufacturers to take that risk, right? Because if I don't get my bonus, if I don't sell XYZ, we work to what we get paid for, right? It just is what it is. So if there's not some way that encouragement, that Dalgona coffee or cottage cheese or whatever the thing is, we're relevant to our customers, how do we make it happen? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm not an HR expert and bonuses
hard
and
question.
everything like that. But with everything we do, and I remember this from the sustainability conference last year too, I think it was the speaker from Walgreens Food Alliance talking about how they integrate sustainability goals into their personal development plans and their bonus structure. So everybody in the company has some sort of goal supporting that. And I think a similar action could be taken to help drive innovation. Of course, we're all focused on increase gross margin value and increase order frequency, whatever. But maybe it could translate into thinking about e-com. It helps drive traffic to our site, or it increases net promoter score, or something like that. I think there's ways to do it. It may look different for the specific company.
So Leo, talk to us about culture, because obviously you're Italian. You're over there now. I think you said it's pouring down raining right now. So you're looking from the outside in at North America, right? You're dealing with retailers. What cultural changes? What do we have to do to become an innovative industry?
Chris, first of all, I think you made before a huge question, how we can have the same mutual goals between the sales, the business, the industry, the ethical practices. I think, first of all, we need to remember that 40% of the global food production is wasted. We need to start from this statement. And also from the fact that based on the projections in 2050, will be 10 billion people living on Earth. So we need to see that we have like natural resources that are limited. And as an industry, in general, I'm talking about just the US, Italy, I think about all the countries in the world, you need to put as a paramount the sustainability of the business. At the same time, I think is also playing a big role the consumers, trend, the new generations, for instance, just to give you this additional comment, the generation Alpha is more proactive when they are talking about health and wellness. Usually back in the day, Clay was mentioning that food was just a nutritional, let's say, tool for our body. And then it became theater, became travel, became entertainment. I think going back on the fact that the new generation will be proactive, they will anticipate the needs of the food to become like a tool to have, let's say, a better life. Combining those aspects, natural resources, consumer behavior, and the future expectation, I think we need to have, let's say, a common goals from industry and from governments to set up rules that are, let's say, also driving the businesses to become more sustainable.
So I know you guys are passionate about global sourcing, and you've been doing a lot of innovative things there. Tell me about some of that, Leo.
Yeah, of course. I think having what is happening for instance, in the perimeter of the stores, when we are talking about brick and mortar, is very interesting right now, because people, again, after COVID, they start experiencing having more, let's say, restaurant experience at home. So they were trying new things. They were trying new flavors. They were trying more global cuisine, because probably they don't have, probably for a year or more, they didn't have the chance to travel abroad. So they use the food to travel, basically. And today, I think they become more aware of flavors and new products, combining with like efficiencies, the convenience of meal kit, for instance, or like always happening in the refrigerated set, is really interesting into the future, the culture that is changing, especially in the United States.
Very good. So we've got about 6 minutes left. If anybody's got a question, you can throw it up there for the panel. But I'm going to end with basically the same question I ended with Mark Fields with. So it's if you could give one piece of advice on how to be more innovative to this industry, to either retailers or manufacturers or both, doesn't matter. What would you say? What's the advice? What do you think, Clay?
I think the most important aspect is really to facilitate a strategic partnership between retailer and manufacturer. There still is in the private label industry a lot of bid activity, a lot of focus on one component, which is cost. The separation of sourcing and selling within the retail sector sometimes makes it difficult to be able to pursue differentiation in products. The retailers that are very successful in the marketplace are the ones that are aligned and are actively seeking input from their manufacturing community about what they're seeing within their categories and how they can win in the marketplace. We are in a global environment more so now than ever with the explosion of social media. And so that is something that we all have to pay very close attention to and understand where trends are emerging, because influencers are, to me, one of the most fascinating things about the social network. How a person can become this influential person and what they're speaking about is something that we all have to pay attention to.
Absolutely. Morgan, what do you think? What piece of advice would you give?
I would say know the end customer, because you could launch something, you could spin your wheels, put something what you think is really cool, but if your customer isn't aligned with it, not something that truly speaks to them and what they're expecting of you, then what was the point? So that, and then also figure out how to be nimble, both manufacturers, both retailers, what layers of the processes can be taken out, removed, or consolidated into something that lends to a more expedient commercialization process. It can be a big hindrance, especially as companies grow.
Very good. Leo, what do you think? Piece of advice.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I think that the strategy of retailers has to, let's say, be more in line with the pace of the market, with the innovation that is asking the consumer, that are asking the consumers. Because today, because of the rules of the game, we know that sometimes you have an idea, and to have that idea on shelf, probably you're taking 2 years, 1 year, 18 months. I think you don't know in 2 years if the idea that you craft and you built on is still a valid idea for the market at that time. So I think we need to reduce the gap of communication. So I agree that transparency and strategic partnership are probably the most efficient and also reliable tool for this industry.
Absolutely. So I'll wrap it up in a bow then, because I think we all agree on this one. It's, as we look out at the industry, and what's that one piece of advice to manufacturers? Well, one piece of advice I'll give manufacturers is collaborate. And I know they don't want to, I know it's hard. I know the industry wasn't built that way, but it's getting there. And every time you pitch something, end with, and let me tell you about what we're doing it with innovation. Even if they don't buy it, every time you pitch, talk about innovation. Okay, I might still buy the dry pasta, but if you didn't tell me about the other cool thing you're doing, I don't know. Okay. As far as retailers, communicate. Tell your manufacturers what your goals are, what your strategy is. If it's a secret, they can't help you. And then all you have, there's no collaboration at all. All you have is a transactional relationship, which doesn't help any of us. So we at the Velocity Institute absolutely believe that innovation has to be an integral part of private brands moving forward, of retailer-owned brands moving forward, and it has to be that +1 that makes us better. So thank you all for joining us. We appreciate it. As we've said before, everything will be available on the YouTube channel. Probably tomorrow would be my guess, but very quickly we'll send out an email letting you know when it's available, so you can go back, look at it, share it with your coworkers and so forth. And we appreciate you all for joining us. If you don't have your ticket for Charlotte, go get it right now. If you buy it before the end of the month, it's $200 off. So I hope to see you in Charlotte, North Carolina.